WNST, Tassin, Baltimore, and Baltimore positive. Just like it says, calm, local, got some Taharka ice cream. Don't worry, there's no honey graham on the set. This is an empty box. My wife's going to make a Taharka ice cream tree around here now that we have some new sponsors and old friends. And this is a guy that, I'm going to be honest, Luke, I miss you. You know what I mean? I miss our stupid conversations about sports and baseball and, girls and transportation and ice cream and cheesesteak subs and anything else that we get into, old baseball cards, Michael Jordan and old stories. And, man, does it feel like we're getting closer to something, right? I mean, it feels like the baseball players with all these wacky rules. It feels like the Ravens and the NFL are trying to push this thing through. Clearly, the Orange Menace at the White House wants us all to go out and have herd immunity at this point with no protection. It feels like they're going to poop or get off the pot kind of sort of soon, right? I mean, in the sports way, right?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see some movement there. I mean, over the weekend, there was a NASCAR race. Over the weekend, there was live golf.
There was soccer as well from the Bundesliga. I watched.
Yeah, right. So
I watched Mönchengladbach. Yes, loved it. I did watch some soccer. It was very, very weird. It was very, very it felt like an exhibition. You know what I mean? It didn't feel real, and I don't think that's why we love sports. We don't love sports because there's no crowd.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not ideal.
Otherwise, highlight would be bigger.
I mean, nothing's ideal right now, but at the same time, I can speak as someone who's watched pro wrestling for the better part of the last 2 months that hasn't shut down. It's not all good, don't get me wrong, but there's certainly elements of it that I still enjoy and still watch. So from that standpoint, I mean, look, we'd all love to have crowds. We all love to have normalcy in every aspect of our lives right now that we just don't have. But it does feel like sports is moving in that direction, slowly, as it should be, if you're going to move in that direction at this point in time. And it's very much a wait-and-see kind of thing, just like every other aspect of our lives, as we're moving into starting to open things up gradually in Maryland and here in Pennsylvania, where I am in York County. So it's definitely... it's hopeful, but it's very, very cautious optimism across the board, and needs to be. So how that plays out, it's one thing to talk about NASCAR or golf or some sport where distancing is kind of lends itself to whatever it is. It's another thing to talk about football in the fall, where clearly there's not very much distancing. Baseball does have some element of distancing in how it's played, but there's much more to it than literally being on the field playing the game.
Yeah, I retweeted some of the stuff that Heyman and Rosenthal and all the baseball writers were tweeting on Sunday. I kind of want to grab it and read the whole list, because when you read it out loud, it has a level of absurdity about where are you going to take BP and become a Major League Baseball player and stay sharp to be a Major League Baseball player if you're not doing it inside?
Right. And I mean, look, I think certain elements of it, kind of border on the theater kind of thing. I mean, this idea that, you make a rule specifically about players don't lick your fingers. And I'm just like, well, if we're temperature screening, but we come down to being worried about someone licking their fingers. I mean, come on. Certainly the testing, certainly the temperature screening, certainly the elements where they're encouraging, when they're going to have, quote, team meetings or group meetings to be outside on the field. More and more studies that you see as far as there being far less risk when you are outside compared to being in closely confined quarters. Which I think is some common sense, but research also supporting that. So those elements, certainly being careful on the road and making players stay in their hotels and all those things. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, when you do get down to some of the details, licking your fingers or you can't eat sunflower seeds if you're a left fielder out, with no one even close to being in the vicinity of you. I mean, I understand.
How you gonna play ball without sunflower seeds? You know
right.
that.
I mean, I understand. I get the thought behind that, but at the same time, if a player eating some sunflower seeds while they're in center field and no one's within, 70 feet of them, then if that's what sinks the season, then we probably shouldn't be doing it. So I think some of the points are a little silly in that way, but certainly, the testing, the temperature screening, players managing, who they're around when they're away from the ballpark. Certainly trying to limit clubhouse time as much as possible. Certainly trying to limit inside time as much as possible. Those are the things you need to do, and certainly, as we learn more and more about this thing, not just from a baseball standpoint, but from a societal standpoint, I think we're finding, way less transmission in outdoor settings. So, do as much as you possibly can outdoors, and you want to have certain elements in place. But it is interesting to note. I've been watching the KBO now for a couple weeks. I'm DVRing the games because I'm not getting out of bed at 5 a.m. just to turn on baseball that I'm not terribly familiar with. But I've been able to check it out, and they test. They have many of the same safeguards. No fans, of course, but it is interesting to note that you've seen players fist bump when they're when someone hits a home run and things of that nature. So I do wonder how much some of those sillier sounding rules will truly be enforced in a real life, everyday, inning to inning, minute to minute kind of standpoint. But certainly many of those elements, I understand the thinking, and it's the thought behind it, because you do want everyone to understand that, everyone needs to be careful if this thing's going to have any shot of working out for any kind of meaningful time.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke. And when we get back to football, get back to baseball, we've been watching the Michael Jordan thing, and Mike Flynn actually delivered on the videotape, the Purple Holy Grail that I have shared. I got to tell you this story, because Flynn's going to come on at some point, and his son's on Broadway, and I remembered shooting the video with Flynn, and the whole thing comes back. All of these memories, right? Like all these ticket stubs that I found, that I did a thing with my wife over the weekend on all the bands, and REM was my band on Sunday, and at some point this week we're going to get to some Bon Jovi amongst other things, and Bruce Springsteen hasn't been brought up yet, neither is U2. So all that's coming this week. And between all the rock and roll memories, the sports memories, the Michael Jordan picture with Mike Messina in the White Sox uniform, and I was on the field that day sitting next to Mark McGwire in the dugout when Juan Gonzalez looked like he was roided out of his mind, and Griffey's hitting the ball with the hat backward off the warehouse, and there were pictures of me floating around that day that Jerry Wachter took. There was a picture of me and Bill Murray in Cubs gear that day. So I have all these memories floating around of stuff, and I found some old Jordan pictures to throw out. I found all this rock and roll stuff, but of all the things to jog my memory, for Mike Flynn and for anybody that's listened to this program for 15 years, there has never been a time Mike Flynn comes on, and Flynn comes on as regularly as anybody. Probably every 2 months, Mike and I get together and catch up and talk sports, and he does sports radio up in Boston. We rode on the Humvee together, and it was completely not together. Like, he invited me. Billick said to me that morning, and I went down there, and if you look in the video, Luke, I did not have a camera on me that day, so I have no pictures of it at all. This is 2001. Your phone did not take pictures in 2001. Reminder. And I had no intention of riding in the parade. I don't like parades. I think I wrote about this in Purple Rain 1. I drove down there to get guests for the barn that night. I knew Edwin Molatalo was coming because he had promised to do his fire dance, but I had no other guests. And you couldn't leave a text message in 2001. You had to call. This was the day after the Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer was at Disney World, for crying out loud. Yeah, I mean, I had his phone number, but I couldn't call him and say, "Hey, will you come out to the barn tomorrow night?" So I thought, I'm going to go down to the meeting point next to the stadium in the player parking lot, and I'm going to find Kyle Richardson, Mike Flynn, Spencer Falau, Kim Herring, Chuck Evans, guys that would be willing to come out, and half the team would have been willing to come out. McCrary, Rob Burnett, any of those guys. Now, Woodson was at the Pro Bowl. I know Ray Lewis was on stage, right? Yeah, I mean, there were people missing that went to the Pro Bowl. Saragusa was on stage, but Shannon Sharp was missing. I don't think Shannon Sharp rode in the parade. I don't think. So the tape arrives, Luke, and I want to tell the whole story because there's people to thank here. Greg Landry did the original video of my wedding. Greg Landry did work I know you saw. Did you see my Free the Birds Comcast commercial back in 2006?
I'm sure I did at some point.
Yeah, Greg Landry shot that.
It's been a while.
Greg Landry's been my friend. He's Harvey Meyer's son-in-law. Harvey owned the Emerald Tavern. Harvey was one of my first ever sponsors. So this thing has incredible legs as a story, right? So Flynn takes his punishment from me, about 3 weeks ago. He was on talking about COVID and his son made this incredible video. Have you seen Good Morning Quarantine, his boy's video?
I saw that you mentioned it. I have not watched it yet, though.
Well, you don't like show tunes?
I have to check it out. There's no doubt. I definitely will.
So Jake Ryan Flynn is his name. You can find it up on YouTube. He made this bombastic video of the John Waters song, Good Morning Baltimore. He changed all the words with the actual guy, Mark Shaman, who wrote the song, who also wrote Mrs. Doubtfire and Willy Wonka. Okay, so he knows very, very well, this 12-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy, Mike Flynn's son, knows the writer of the music of John Waters. So he gets in an email with him, and he says, you can do it. I'll have you do it. We'll change the words, but I want to help you with the words. And you have to sing it right. It has to really rhyme. So Mike gives me all these stories, and Mike's wife's also been a part of this, Mary. And the video's brilliant, okay? I mean, your mother's going to love the video. Your sister's going to love the video. It's him waking up and having his Broadway show canceled during the quarantine and how much I hate you, quarantine. And Mike's in the video. All of his brothers are in the video. All the neighbors are in the video. He prances out into the street with his mask on, and he's singing to the neighbors, and the neighbors all come out and wave. It's a fantastic, fantastic production. It's 3 minutes of your life you will not regret. It's Mike Flynn's family and his Broadway son. So he comes on to promote this thing, okay? This is 3 weeks ago. That's what happens if you listen to WNST, Baltimore Positive. You get these great stories, Luke. So I beat him up, and I beat him up, and I beat him up again, and I'm like, send me the tape. It's quarantine. You have no excuse to not find the tape. Find the tape. All right, so a little background on the tape. David Modell enters the story here and gifted every player when they got to Tampa. Actually, when they got on the bus, I believe, to go down to the rally, they were all given a bag that had a camcorder. David bought every player a camcorder so that they would record it, so that they would have it for the rest of their lives, so that 19 years later, some guy like me would get a hold of it and share it again so everybody could remember how incredible it was. I mean, just how incredible it was. And so Flynn has this video camera, as did every player, that David Modell gifted them. And later, by the way, Ozzie got slapped at the winter meetings against the cap. Pat Moriarty had to pay for all of those as salary against the cap. True story. True story, okay?
That's wild.
So the cameras are there. Mike Flynn I'm approaching him. He's got the camera on me down by the Humvees. And Billick says to me, you're getting in the parade, right? I'm like, Coach, I'm sick. I've been in Tampa. I flew to Philadelphia yesterday with Baldinger and Matt Millen. I did 4 hours of Nasty Nationwide yesterday. I drove 2 hours home. I barely got to hug my kid. You know what I mean? I haven't seen my mother. I'm sick as a dog. I'm going to go watch the parade on TV with my mother. And he's like, get in the parade. You're getting in the parade. Get in the somebody's going to put you on. Flynn, put him on your Spencer, somebody put him on here, you know. So Flynn's like, "Yeah, man. Hey, dude, get up on my Hummer, dude. You can hold the camera and it'll be great. Come on, you won't regret it." I'm like, "Dude, I don't even have a poncho." And I think Aaron Cashman gave me a poncho. I was not dressed for it. I had my hard hat, my helmet, in the back of my car because, like, it was just – I might have even had the nasty van that day down there. I mean, like, literally, you know? Like, I may have driven that. I don't even remember. And Flynn throws me up on his foot. This all happened in 20 minutes, dude. This all happened like you could smell the gasoline burning on the tanks. It was it was choking. It was nauseating, you know? Down in the and players were arriving, and they were trying to organize how these tanks were going to, like, go, you know, through the city, out by the stadium and down by Camden Yards. And I drove there early in the morning. I had the people I mentioned, Kim Herring, Kyle Richardson, Spencer Falau, Mike Flynn, and Edwin Molatalo, all came that night to the barn. Edwin did the fire dance in the middle of the floor. And people have video of that somewhere. Somewhere that exists. That night exists on video. I don't have it. But I did not have a camera, and I was very worried we were profane. You know, holding the camera up, that we were like, F this, oh my, you know, just like holy, you know, like I thought we were profane. And the more I think about it, we were not, because Flynn had the camera on, and I was way more embarrassed for how many times he sang, "Who let the dogs out? Who?" So he kept doing that in the video. And so Flynn does the show 3 weeks ago. The video has been missing for 19 years. Can you and I have no pictures from that day, okay? Can you imagine how many times I've ridden him about the video? I mean, seriously, that he lost that video.
Right. Probably once a year at least.
If your brother-in-law lost the wedding video with your sister, and it was lost forever, how many times would your sister be telling her husband about the video? How often?
Or he'd be my ex-brother-in-law.
Well, I'm not going to go that far with Flynn because I do love him dearly, you know. So I've just browbeaten the manure out of him, you know, all of our lives about this. And so I'm in this quarantine. He does this quarantine video. I'm like, you had time to F around with your kid making a video to show on YouTube, and you can't find the video of you in the Super Bowl parade? You won the Super Bowl and you lost the freaking video. So, I mean, you can go back and listen to it. So I get off the air with him like I do with you, and I say goodbye, and I say we never stop, you know, Baltimore positive, and I do my thing, and I stop the tape, and I go on, and Flynn's like, I just wanted to let you ramble on, man. I found the tape, man. I found the tape. And I'm like, he said, I just wanted to give you one last chance to take my ass publicly because I'm sending you the tape.
That's great.
So he sends me the picture of it in his hand, right? And I send it to you because I know you would appreciate how excited I was, right?
Definitely.
I mean, this was truly one of the transcend. And my wife sort of gets it, and my son sort of gets it. My mother's dead. You sort of get it. I don't know that anybody else
in the rain, yeah.
I don't know that anybody else would really get that I rode in the parade and have no picture of it. That Rick Knoppinger sent a picture on Thursday night of me and Flynn on the stage because I said we were, you know, and we were behind like where Corey Harris was, and you can see him because his hair was white. We were back in that corner, and Rick Knoppinger copped the picture from his own camera. This is the power of an audience, Luke. And he's like, I see Flynn in the back holding the camera, and is that you? And I'm like, yeah, that's me on the stage. It's the only picture I have, and I'm so the film arrives. Now, Flynn mails it last weekend, and he texts me on Monday. He's like, is it there? And I'm like, dude, are you scamming me? I mean, did you really mail it, or are you just trying to make me wet, you know, like getting sweaty here with COVID and whatnot? Wednesday afternoon, he texts me. He's like, do you have it yet? And I'm like, I do not have it. He's like, I got to get the tracking number. Like, I'm worried. He got worried that the tape's lost. Mm-hmm. So after all of this, now we're worried that the U.S. Postal Service has lost the tape. Thursday morning, it arrives. And I reached to Greg Landry, who was my dear friend from Blue Rock Productions, who's a phenomenal human being. If you have any video needs, call Greg. He's a rock star. And he said, I'm over at Essex Community College. Drop the tape off. Dude, this was like the Brady Bunch scene when they were like going through the amusement park, dropping stuff off. You know what I mean? Like the layers of getting this tape to where it needed to be. The tape arrives, and it's tiny. If I should grab it. It's a tiny little format that my wedding tape is that tape size in 2003, but I don't have any conversion tools for this thing. So thank God for Greg Landry. It's some DVRC little cassette-looking thing. I give it to Greg at Essex Community College. He makes it. In the era of the old world, I would have to go and get the DVD or pick it up, right? Now it just hits my Dropbox in the middle of the night. Right. I wake up on Friday morning, and I get my Cole Roofing mug and my Royal Farms coffee, and I look down, and I see Mike Flynn Parade Super Bowl 35 MP4 in a Dropbox. Luke, I'm going to tell you, you have been with me when we've won a Super Bowl, right? You and I have been together. I've made money on Super Bowls. I funded our business on sports and stuff. I'm not sure that there's ever going to come a point in my life, maybe if I'm a grandparent and my kid has no intention of that, right? I don't know the next time in my life that I'm going to be more excited about anything than watching this video of me riding in the parade that nobody remembers but me. Everybody has their individual memory of that day, and they have their pictures or whatever. And when I tell you what happens here on Friday, so I download it, I go into my wife, and I'm like, I'm going to watch the video. She says, you want to watch it with me? And I'm like, no. I want to watch it alone, and I want to, like, take it in, and I want to, like, figure it out a little bit, and I want to, like, make sure that we didn't say anything really stupid that I don't want you to hear, or anybody to hear. It's not fair to Mike. It's not fair to me. You know what I mean? And as I opened it up and started watching it, I remembered that Mike sort of did make it for his kids. He doesn't know this yet, but he sort of did make it for the kids that didn't exist. He wasn't married yet. I was at his wedding 2 years later. He got married 2 years later. My wife and I attended his wedding together in Boston. And so he sort of made it for posterity. So there's only one F-bomb in it that I dropped. And you want to know what the F-bomb is? I turned the corner on Pratt Street, and I said, holy F, I've only got one bar on my phone. And he says to me, put your phone away. You don't need your phone today.
There you go. He said, life advice there for a big moment.
I think he said, I got the whole thing on video, man. You know what I mean? But the video was lost for 19 years.
That's something.
So there's only one F-bomb that I found on it, and there comes this point where, like, the camera's getting really wet and really soggy. The camera's a little muddy because the water's on the lens because it was that wet. And then somehow, miraculously, Flynn cleared it off. Flynn knew what he was doing. He dried it off, turned the camera, and put it on me. In front of what is now my home, in front of the Inner Harbor. I don't remember that moment. I remembered him turning the camera on me on Gay Street, and I remembered thanking him, and I thanked him on the video, and I'm going to show that later. Like, I thanked him with tears in my eyes in the middle of the video. I stopped everything in the middle and thanked him, and I'm going to show that a little later. But that first piece, the first thing that happened, and you'll flip at this, Luke, because this is one of our family members here, right? You and me. A guy we go to war with every day and have forever. I'm on the parade route. I'm holding the camera. Flynn's holding the camera, and it's crazy. Like, we're passing the warehouse. We make the left turn by the convention center. And when we go by the convention center, a guy comes running at me yelling, Nestor! Nestor! And I look, and the camera freezes, and I froze it, and it's not HD quality film. I mean, this is old square box. It's 2001, and it's film. It's not digital. It's analog. It's tape. It's Ed Frankovic.
There you go.
Screaming at me, perfect. And I stopped it, and I screenshot it, and I took a picture, and the first thing I did was send a picture to Ed Frankovic, and I said, dude, you're in the parade video.
That's great.
So, middle of the night last night, I haven't watched the whole thing. Like, I get emotional, and it's weird, and it's just weird. But I've watched parts of it and scanned through it, and there might be some S-bombs and F-bombs. I'm not sure. There's Flynn singing "Who Let the Dogs Out" a lot and saying "thank you" a lot. Flynn's yelling "thank you" a lot. "Who let the dogs out" and saying, "This is unbelievable. This is incredible. This is incredible. That's all we're saying, And I remembered feeling like I didn't belong on the thing. You know what I mean? It felt very Forrest Gumpy. It felt very like I didn't belong on the thing. And when I even said on the video, I'm just gravy train. I do not belong on this float. Like, Billick made me do this, and I was just in the right place at the right time to be on the float. And I guess the strangest thing about it is I've now gone through it twice-ish a little bit, but I haven't spent, I'm working on some important stuff and I'm doing some writing, so I'm not obsessed with the video. But last night I watched a little bit more of it, and it's amazing to see David Modell and Art Modell. They feel very alive to me, holding the trophy together, and a younger Steve Bisciotti with Art on the stage, and, and the fans, and Saragusa's children, Corey Harris's children, who are now 30 years old. When I put Goose on, I'm like, how's that little girl? She's 24, man. Oh, well, okay. But last night in the middle of the night, I saw another image of a clear face that I recognized, and I screenshot it. It's Dave Rather from Mothers running out at me, and I sent him a picture. I'm like, is this you? He's like, that's absolutely me. And it's this incredibly happy picture. It's a picture of Dave that would say he's the happiest man on the face of the earth. I'm going to hold it up on the screen because Dave's been a sponsor for a long, long time. So I'm going to hold this up for everybody to see how happy Dave was. And Dave's actually holding a camcorder on me. So all this time, Dave's had video of me and hasn't shared it. But so I'm going to be releasing pieces of that when things get the darkest, Luke, okay? Because it was certainly a rainbow of color in my life that came to me on Friday morning. And the thing that I noticed as we get ready for this mayor's election, and we're talking so much about the country and COVID and politics and Baltimore Positive, is the togetherness of the people of Baltimore that day. I mean, black, white, young, old, the joy, the passion, the energy. Where were you that day? Like, give me you were 17 or 18 years old, right?
Yeah, I was a senior in high school. My dad took off work, and we went to the parade. We did not – look, I'd be lying to you if I tried to express some vivid, specific encounter or memory.
Do you know where you were on the parade route?
Dude,
if I can find you in this video, I'm going to flip.
We were way back, in the crowd at City Hall.
You were at City Hall, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we saw that. I mean, we could hear it, and certainly the rain was pelting our heads, and I mean, it was a miserable day from that standpoint, but I remember being there, and just the euphoria. Do
you have any pictures?
I don't. I mean,
man, you went to the parade and didn't take a camera. Well, like we did. Nobody. Like, I have asked for 19 years of anybody who happened to have a picture of me on the float with Flynn, and someone sent me one once, and it's really grainy, and we're a mile away, and Flynn's got his arm in the air, and I'm wearing a red poncho, and I'm wearing a hard hat, and that's literally the only image I have of me from that day, and I always thought the tape would turn up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I always thought, like, at some point, I'm going to have this incredible memory of it, but I don't know if Dave Rather knows what happens to the tape that he had that day, or what we do with these old pictures, or why we share them, but it really was truly a gift to me. If I find you and your father on that video, you'll flip, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you'll flip.
No question. I mean, it's to your point. I mean, it's something that, this is 2 decades ago at this point, 19 years, and it's one of those moments that, to your point, when you're talking about a wedding or something like that, you typically make a concerted effort to capture some moments, at least some photos, if not video of it. But this was something that, I mean, think about this. This is January 2001. It was raining. I mean, you mentioned cell phones. I didn't even have a cell phone at that point in time.
The people that drove to Tampa could barely get home on Monday.
Right. So, but you had so many people there, an impromptu gathering from the standpoint of they had only won the Super Bowl just the other day. So, lots of people taking off work, and the weather was miserable. So it wasn't necessarily the perfect forum for great record keeping from a photo and video standpoint. So when you find something like that, boy, is that special.
How about this,
really
Luke? We turn the corner, and I got Frankovic, okay? And I take a picture. And now we're going down Pratt Street, okay? We're, like, up by, the Wharf Rat, okay? By Balls, right? Like, we're by the convention center. And the camera's taking on water. And there's about 2 minutes of it that's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh, my God, the whole hour is trash. Like I thought I waited 19 years, and the video is just garbage because
anyone who remembers the weather that day can believe that because it was miserable.
It's true, man. I got into it, and I was so excited. And when the parade route, about 15 to 17 minutes into the video, I had to stop it, and I did like a little like, please, if there's a God, if there's any justice in this world, that I've waited 19 years for this video, please, Mike or myself, somebody find something dry and wipe off the lens.
Sure. I believe it.
It happened. Man, so, these videos and these old pictures and these old memories and the Michael Jordan, I even broke out my Michael Jordan 1997. He dropped 55 that day. I looked up the box score, by the way. So, I'm into nostalgia and some old. Hey, man, we have no baseball. We have no hockey. We have fake golf and fake NASCAR and fake wrestling and whatever this is at this point. And we're debating whether they're going to play football or baseball. I'm skeptical, and I'll remain skeptical because I've done some research on pathogens and viruses and plagues and stuff like this and non-testing and all of that. I don't feel real solid about sports right now coming back. I'd like to be hopeful. The baseball thing, I guess, this week's going to take on some energy, right?
Yeah, well, and I think so much of it, which is it just speaks to the state of the sport, and we've been talking about it the last 2 or 3 off seasons, is
they hate each other.
Are they going to work this out from a financial standpoint? I mean, you have the players who already agreed to take a prorated portion of their salary. The owner saying that was under the assumption of having fans attend games. Look, I mean, none of this is ideal for anyone, but at the same time, we also have talked so much about salaries being depressed the last few years where I'm not going to be losing any sleep for any baseball owners or any sports owners at this point in time. But when you have poor labor relations, when you're already talking about the upcoming CBA and how tricky that's going to be, to put it mildly, then it's one thing to talk about all the different ways the sport's going to look different and everything they're going to have to do from a safety standpoint. But I know hearing some different national reporters and looking at what the owners want compared to what the players are willing to do and what risk they're willing to take on
and their families,
human beings. There's room to be skeptical. At the same time, I also feel how can either side possibly fathom that being the reason why they don't play in 2000?
Because it's who they are. It's who they've always been.
Sure. But my point would be, that
you
would
and I
90,
think
that
that's
would be
crazy.
94, 95 all over again.
Well,
that would be
or 81 in my father's case when he canceled the Sporting News.
Yeah, what was 2002 when it wasn't until the 11th hour that they struck a deal. 2002, 2003 it was one of those 2 years.
That's when Peter Angelos came in and saved baseball.
Right. So from that standpoint, yeah, I mean there's skepticism, but you hope that both sides can figure out something that's tenable, something that's palatable, understanding that none of
that's
this
what they
is
thought
ideal.
when Ted Lerner and Peter Angelos were going to get together and slice up a couple of billion, right?
Sure. So from that standpoint, yeah, I mean, I hear your skepticism loud and clear.
And more than that, there's way more animosity because Adam Jones is over in Japan right now, right? Like, those guys all got chased out, and and they reap what they sow. So it will be fascinating that, and I talked to Leonard Raskin from Raskin Global last week about this, that we've been at this our whole lives, them divvying up billionaires and millionaires and money, and why this would be any different, I can't say that it would be. And when you bring in the fact that these players have wives and health and a lot of money already, like, why am I going to go play baseball in the middle of a virus when I've already got $40 million in the bank? Why?
Yeah.
Why does Steven Strasburg want to show up and do this right now? I wouldn't if I were him. I'll be honest with you. As a human being, I wouldn't until our government and the people who are in charge of our health stop lying to us as a federal government, which they've been doing, lying to us, every day, and this goof running around without a mask on every day at press conferences, telling everybody to go back to work so we can make money. If I'm Steve Strasburg, I'm not pitching. And that's part of the issue with the union, too, because the union walks together always, right? Like, they're either all going to play or they're all not going to play, allegedly. Yeah, I don't know. This is a different can of worms than, there might be a guy making $30 million this year who says, I don't want to play for $30 million because I've already got $130 million. There might be somebody out there saying, I'm only making $3. I'm 24 years old. I'm trying to get paid. My name's not Machado. And then, to your point, we have Trey Mancini who's fighting for his life, right? Like, so we have all the stories on the spectrum out there, but trying to think that they're going to get all these players to get together and play, I don't know. I think that's uphill.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly challenging. I don't think it's something that can't be done, but there's certainly questions about it. But, to the point you just made, though, players and owners like money. I mean, like most people do. I mean, you need money to provide for your family. And yes, players that are well established, although I think it's certainly fair to note that we're talking about guys in their 20s. I mean, we're not talking about the age group that is certainly of the greatest risk, but certainly there is risk when you're talking about their loved ones and people around them that they interact with on a regular basis. But you are talking about an industry where there is a limited period to earn. We talk about this all the time with the NFL. I mean, the average career is a couple years. I mean, that's you don't have much time to do that. So for every player who might be well established and might be a little more inclined, and Blake Snell last week, of course, talked about this, at pretty big length as far as not wanting to split revenue as owners are trying to propose. One, because the players already agreed to prorated salaries, but he talked about some of the risk. And, it's one thing to talk about someone who's established, someone who, whether they make money in 2020 or not, will certainly be making money in the years to come. But you do have a very wide, large portion of the players' union who does not fall into that category in the same way that when we're talking about the CBA that was just passed between the NFL and the NFLPA a couple months ago, how much of that really was catered towards upping the league minimum and really taking care of the large percentage of players who aren't going to be in the league very long and aren't going to earn nearly as much money. And yeah, they'll earn some life-changing money, but not as though those guys are going to play 1 or 2 years at the league minimum and suddenly they're set up for the rest of their lives. I mean, they still have long-term considerations to kind of factor in there. So we'll see. I mean, again, I hear your skepticism. I don't know if I'm as skeptical, but I certainly have skepticism. And I
have skepticism because it's a pandemic, it's a virus, and clearly our society has no idea what the hell they're doing. I mean, I watched the people running around in Fells Point. I watched the Italian mayors 4 months ago in profane terms tell people to stay the F home in the same way that Samuel L. Jackson told people to stay the F home. And my wife has actually told people to stay the F home on Twitter as well. And now all of a sudden, after 8 weeks, we're all going to run around and have herd immunity. That hasn't worked out well in Sweden. So, I've done a lot of research on this and done a lot of work on this. I'm not going out. And when I do go out, I go out with a mask and gloves because I've seen my wife battle for her life and gasp for air, and be on ventilators and whatnot like that. Not a ventilator, but oxygen machines and fight for life. So I'm just not. I'm not down with what the federal government, the lies they're selling me. So that's as blunt as I can be about it. So the NFL can play around all they want and think they're fooling people about opening a stadium and think they're going to get together and have players run around without getting viruses. And the virus is way too active right now for me.
Well, I mean, and that may very well might be the case.
And I don't talk about it much on the radio. I talk about it on the internet a lot, but it's just the virus is way too active for me to think that Lamar Jackson's going to be safe with 100 other people running around a facility and the people that are necessary that you know that I know that get football players ready to play football, and the amount of sweat and blood and tape and physical and breathing and space and classroom and just all of that, dude. I mean, you're around it, I'm around it. It doesn't feel realistic to me.
Well, I'll say what I've said to you on a number of occasions. I mean, it's still a long ways away. I mean, it is. But literally in terms of time and figuratively speaking to some of the challenges.
I love that they're getting ready, and I love that they're speaking in prosperous tones.
Sure.
And they have to be prepared to play. They're not going to throw the towel in now. But if you're asking me whether I'm betting $1 on it or against it, I'm probably betting $1 against it. That I'm going to be getting on a plane and going to Houston, or they're going to be getting on a plane to go to Houston to play a football game the second week of September. I will be very, very shocked if that happens. I think the odds of that on a, put my Preakness hat on here. The odds of that are, I don't know, 4 to 1. I don't know. That's what I give it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
25% chance.
I'm more confident than you are about that. I'm certainly not saying 100% by any means, but I think you're really dismissing the value of the dollar when it comes to that. I mean, and look, I'm not saying whether that's right or not, but there's a lot of money to be made or lost. So if there is a way to do it, and look, Lamar Jackson's not the one at risk. It's it's those around the organization. It's the families of players where you're starting to talk about an increased level of risk. That makes this, to your point, very complicated. So I think there are ways it can be done, ways to thread the proverbial needle, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. And certainly a lot's going to happen between now and then if we are talking about the season being kicked off in September or October or whenever it does take place.
All right, man. Well, hang in there. I know the Jordan thing's over right now. I mean, you've got the WWF and old wrestling videos you can watch, right? Go back and do that. You know what? My wife has been taping the Dark Side of the Ring. Have you watched those?
I have. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. In fact, I mean the Chris Benoit one was really heavy. I thought it was well done.
I'm not interested in that one. You know what I mean? Like the Bruiser Brody one, the ones that were the wrestlers I was interested in.
Sure.
I've
you
grabbed.
Should check out season 1 because that was Bruiser Brody, Fabulous Moolah. They talked about.
She held the Fabulous Moolah one for me. Yes, I mean she went through all of them and said, "Which ones do you want?" And I'm like, "I don't want that one. I want that one." Moolah, Brody, and there was maybe one other one that I wanted to watch for sure.
The most recent one was the Road Warriors. So you might have a little bit of interest in that, but it's a really good series. Not every topic, every subject hasn't been a home run, but it's pretty well done. Certainly, it's not something that carries water for Vince McMahon and WWE, which I think a lot of people find refreshing, considering WWE has monopolized the industry for the last, really the last 2 decades, but even before that, if you want to go back to, the rise in the mid '80s. But it's been fun to relive some of the stories, but certainly the subject matters, tend to be a little bit darker. Some are, they talked about the Brawl for All, that, the shoot fighting thing they did in 1998 during the start of the Attitude Era, which, that one was more just how preposterous the idea was. But, they deal with some of the, it's called Dark Side of the Ring for a reason. So, but it's been good. I've enjoyed the series, and certainly recommend checking it out to anyone that's a pro wrestling fan. And season 1, to your point, they went a little more old school with some of those. Season 2's been, not modern, but a little more modern stuff from the 90s or so.
Hey, was the Road Dogg one of the Road Warriors? Because I found a picture of me and the Road Dogg.
No, that's the New Age Outlaws. The Road Warriors, I'm talking Hawk and Animal, the Legion.
Yeah. But
you're thinking of New Age Outlaws.
Right? I had a picture. They came to my Nice Guy Awards. I found it the other day. I'm in a white suit. It was me and the Road Dogg and Mr. Ass, Badass Billy Gunn.
Badass Billy Gunn, right?
Absolutely. So I got a little wrestling here. Look at Monty Kipsop, better known by his ring name, Billy Gunn. All Elite Wrestling. Road Dogg, Jesse James. The Roadie, Brian Gerard James, retired pro wrestler.
He right now. Road Dogg is behind.
He's Bob Armstrong's kid. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he's behind the scenes at WWE. He's, I believe, he was either on SmackDown or Raw and switched to the other in the last few months. But he's part of the creative team. And
I have pictures of the real Road Warriors and the Junkyard Dog outside the Baltimore Civic Center off the Hopkins Place entrance when I was a boy, and they used to bring Georgia Championship Wrestling up here with Austin Idol.
That's
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Gordon Soley. On that note, we will leave you. But you're doing your Ravens countdown. Plug that because everybody's into that, and we're sharing that.
Absolutely. Right now, I'm working on my top 25 Ravens regular season moments. The rationale for doing regular season is you don't need me to reminisce about the Mile High Miracle. Everyone remembers the playoff moment. So digging a little bit deeper, we're all missing the meat and potatoes of season.
Hey, man, everybody forgot about the parade till I broke the video out, right?
Yeah, there you go. So, but I've been recounting that about, we're 6 into it at this point. I'm doing about 3 a week. That's kind of where I'm spacing it out right now. Take us through the end of June. And it's been fun. I've recounted the very first touchdown, Vinny Testaverde, which you and I talked to Vinny in Miami this past January about that very first touchdown and what that meant to so many different people.
How awesome was Vinny on the show? How awesome was that?
That was fun.
It's almost as good as Diamond Dallas Page, but
nothing will top DDP though, no question. And I've noticed, you dropped a couple references to DDPY on Facebook to me.
I'm trying to keep you engaged up there on the farm, making sure you and your brother aren't falling asleep up there.
No
When you
doubt.
do, I'll send in some Pink Floyd.
DDPY has been part of my weekly routine. I've been getting on the mat.
Tell your brother not to be pissed at me. There's no Dave Matthews or Pink Floyd in my top 32. All right.
Right. But yeah, I've been doing the regular season moments list. My last one at the end of last week was a very recent one, the fourth down play in Seattle, where we learned all the context of Lamar Jackson convincing John Harbaugh to go for it, and Marshall Yanda, and you think about what that meant, not just the 2019, but what that means in the big picture.
That may move up the charts if,
It might. My rationale for that was, hey, this is Lamar Jackson's team now. That was kind of the official seminal moment that, hey, this is truly his team now when a Super Bowl winning head coach and in all likelihood a future Hall of Fame right guard acquiesce to him and say, hey, we'll follow your lead. Yeah, let's go score the touchdown. That way more than just beat the Seahawks. There was a big picture meaning to that, hey, only time will tell how meaningful that is, but certainly was good for number 20 on my list.
I liked it because we had incredible pizza that day, and it was the kickoff to my Hawaiian adventure with my wife. You can find Luke at WNST.net. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and in all places and keeping you informed of all things Orioles, Ravens, Terps when they do it. And in the meantime, counting down those Ravens memories, and we'll get together again soon, continue to talk some sports. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I want to thank Sporticulture. We finally killed the Ravens plan. It took a month, Court, but really appreciate the Magma lamp. We have the Ravens Magma lamp as well as the Terps Magma lamp behind us, all brought to you by our friends at Sporticulture. I got my Keep the Preakness in Baltimore pin that I'm going to keep around here as well. Big thanks to Royal Farms and Coffee. I got some, this box really did have Royal Farms chicken and Western fries in it the other day. I stopped for a little two-piece the other day. It was the one on Old Philadelphia Road, right near Golden Ring. I found myself out there by King Discount Liquors, and I was just hungry for some chicken. So I got a two-piece and some Western fries because it had been too long. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast, always with us and always doing good stuff in the Maryland Food Bank and feeding people and doing awesome stuff. And we've had our friends on from Royal Farms the last couple of weeks. Want to give them some appreciation. So gas up as well. Taharka Ice Cream now sponsoring us. It's the Honey Graham. I'm working on the Wake and Bake as well as some flavors that I have not checked out yet. Really looking forward to the matcha green tea. Got to get some of that in my belly as well as some of the chocolate. Taharka, local, and it's made in Baltimore. It says so right on the lid here. Make sure you're looking for Baltimore ice cream. Pizza John, State Farm. Mimi Brown's going to be here later this week, as will Leonard Raskin from Raskin Global. And a major shout-out to Todd Schuler, who looks like maybe he still had crawfish on Saturday. And DamnAGoodLawyer.com for all your personal injury work. We got a lot of great sponsors around here. I give shout-outs. I give love to all of them. Bruce Posner's here on Monday, and Dennis is here on Thursday, and doing sports radio. And you can find us out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world, and all of our Baltimore positive stuff, all the mayor stuff you're going to hear here this week. Voting is so important. It's so fundamental. It's so important for the future of Baltimore as well as our country, so I'm on it. Hope you're on it, as well as all the educators we're having at Baltimore Positive, including incredible chat with Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman. So y'all down at Pasadena are lucky. You got a good one down there at Stuart Pittman, who spent an hour with Don Moeller and I on Baltimore Positive last week. You'll find it this week on Baltimore Positive, and you'll certainly hear it here at WNST. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We're keeping calm, staying local, and always Baltimore Positive.